Good afternoon, students. Welcome to our presentation, English 11 Module 1. This is 2020, April, August, and November exam presentation. We have 3 books that we need to have, or textbook that we need to have when we are preparing for this coming examination. The textbooks are the same as those that are doing English Module 2. The textbooks are the same, except the study guide. The study guide for Module 1 is completely different from the one from Module 2. So you need to have a study guide specifically for English Module 1. The rest, you are using the same textbooks. And here is a list of them. Please make sure that you have the right book. Okay, let's go to the content of our presentation. This first part, I'm just summarizing the study guide. I just pick out the key points or the key content in our study guide. This part, not necessarily that they are part of the examination, but this one I just want you to know, because these are the main points or main content of our guide. You can have this knowledge for your teaching in your class, apart from using it in your examination. Okay, we have 2 forms of language. The language has 2 forms, the formal one and the informal one. The informal language has few components under it, and these are the components that I want you to master. We have emotive language, which is a part of informal language. And what is emotive language? You must know what is emotive language. We have subjective. You must know what is subjective language. We have objective, denotation, connotation, and so on, bias and prejudice. So those are components of informal language. I have tried to explain each one by one for you, but the moment you get this slide, try to read it and understand what is each really entailed. I'll go through very fast because of time. We have a lot of slides in this presentation. Subjective language, which is under emotive language. Know that we have 2 forms of language, the formal one and informal language. And informal language has some components that I want you to understand and master, and these are the ones that I'm going to explain right now. Subjective language, which is a part of emotive language, it's a personal and it's one side point of view. That is subjective. It's a personal idea, the way you understand issues, the way you express yourself, and it's one-sided point of view. For example, let me say, in my own point of view, I'm saying Maria is clever than everyone. That's how I understand the issue, or that's how I understand Maria. That's how I see it. But not necessarily that Maria is really clever than everyone. That one is just my personal point of view. So that is subjective. And we go to denotation. Denotation is strictly a dictionary meaning. If you are giving a meaning and it's exactly as it is defined in a dictionary, that one is denotation. And connotation is the emotional and associations around the word. If maybe you are speaking and you are very angry or whatever emotion that you have, and you say whatever you have to say around that word, that one is a connotation that you are giving to that word. And here is an example of a connotation. For example, if I'm saying Tina participation in a competition was just a walk on the top of water, ne? So you see that the message doesn't come out clear. A person could listen to you but don't understand, could hear what you are saying but don't understand what exactly that you want to say, because the way that you have used are connotated. There is a connotation on the words that we have used. And denotation say directly as the message it is, and the person can pick it up immediately what you are saying. If I say Tina participation in the competition did not bring anything, you know, Tina went for a competition, but she did not come back with any maybe medal or any reward and so forth. But if I say Tina participation in a competition was a walk on top of water, so you might think the other way around, maybe Tina was walking on top of water, but that is not the message. So you must know the difference between the connotation and denotation. We have bias and prejudice. This one is referred to a personal preconceived belief not based on evidence or fact. What a person will just justify what he think, what he believe, but there is no factors around that what he is saying that can prove that what he is saying is true. For example, if I'm saying that the men are good leaders, yes, it might be true that the men that I have saw they are good leader, but not necessarily that all the men, wherever you find a man is a good leader. That one is bias and prejudice. Okay, we move on to the next slide, which is talking about importance of being proficient in English in Namibia. Why do we need to be proficient in English in Namibia? There are more points on this one. Why do we need to be good in English in Namibia? Okay, it's an official language in our country and so forth. Please have an understanding on that question and be able to come up with many points in a clear. Then we go to what we call that these are the ways on how learners, children, or the way we learn language, it being facilitated by different factors, either social, cognitive, and linguistic factors. These are the factors that contribute to the development of language in children, or let me say in learners in this case. But apart from the rest factors that I have mentioned, cognitive and linguistic, I want us to focus on the factor which is a social factor. When we are talking about social, this is the surrounding, the environment where we are living in, the people that we interact with. Social factor is the social environment where the child lives. This can be home, school, church, and so forth. So the question might come this way, that you must explain how do social factor contribute to the language development of learners. This one you must come out clear how the interaction of the learner or interaction of the children with the people who are explicitly good in the language can also influence the language development of an individual. For example, let me say if a child is learning English at school and at home no one can speak English with the child, maybe at church or wherever the child go play with or go, there is no anyone who can speak English with that child, then the development of the language, it's slow comparing to the child who socialize, who interact all the time with the speaker of English at school, at home, at church. So the way they learn, it will be different. So the more you interact, the more you learn. The more you practice, practice makes it better, and as we know it, there's one of the slogan in our schools. The practice makes it better. So the more you practice, the more, this is just the same, the more you learn. Social factor is just based on the interaction, how often the learner practice the language. If the learner speaks language at home and at school and wherever the child goes, then the learning process goes faster. Please get more points on this one and try to at least to unfold it nicely when you meet it in the examination. Stories are good tools to use in teaching reading. When we are referring to stories, this one is stories that are in literature books or essay or prose or whatever stories that we use in our classes. They are good in teaching language. So I want you now to explain how it's more on teaching, how as a story it's a tool. How can you use it in your class now to teach your learners to read? How can you use it? This is what I want to find out from you. Sometimes you can say you give learners different activities. Okay, let me know those activities. Let me hear about those activities that you are giving to your learners, and they must be relating to each other, not just speaking one by one. So at least they must be a link between the activities that we are trying to explain in your paper. Different ways that we can use to make our learners love reading. What are those ways that you can use your learners to stimulate their love of reading? There are different ways of maintaining order in your class. Most of us, it doesn't matter you are a senior teacher or a junior teacher, learners are getting out of our hand in our classes. They are getting out of our hands. We couldn't control learners in our classes. And, with this new policies in our country that no corporal punishment in schools, I want you to find out. I want you to give me how the different ways that you can use to maintain order in your class. What are those? But please, I don't want to hear that you beat the learners. You know that one it's the law. You cannot do it. Give me the different ways that teachers can use to maintain orders in their classes. Okay, there are a few examples, but don't stick on this one. Go beyond this one. Try to be innovative and creative. There are different ways. Let's say what we do in our classes. How do we keep learners calm and quiet and do their work without disturbance in our classes? What are those strategies that we use? Spelling is a problem in English language. Most learners struggle with spelling words correctly. There are different ways that teachers can employ in assisting learners to spell correctly. This one is spelling. We are talking about spelling. How? What are those strategies? What are those tools? What are those methods that you use to teach your learners how to spell? One can say you give them a lot of books, expose them to different reading books. The more you read, the more you come across different words, different new words, and the more you learn also how to spell. Spelling games, spelling test, spelling competition, and so forth. Readathon, we have readathon, day, so that we always commemorate in our schools. We can use that day or that week for learners to read, spell, and do all those type of activities. Okay, I know you can have more than this. These are just examples, just to open your mind on what really this title or this or topic want you to cover. Okay, apart from this one, we come now to this one, which is it's really a new term to most of us, or a new abbreviation to most of the students, which is TQLR strategy. This strategy is used to prepare learners for listening activity. When really this one if we have to talk about it, we only want you to explain or to understand. Tune in. T stand for tune in. What are those activities? What goes into this tune in? What learners are expected to do, and what is the teacher is expected to do under this? Questions, which is key questions. What goes into this? Listening. What goes into this? Review, and so on. So you have just to explain, and things are there clearly for you. Ne? Here you just have to understand. If I ask you to give how to present this one to your learners, and you are using this method or this strategy, you just tell me, under tune in, this is what learners will do, and this is what the the teachers will do. Under question, this is what will happen, and under listening, this is what will happen. This one is straightforward. Eh? So let's just read it and understand it. Ways of creating good learning environment in our classroom. Learners do not need to be stressed when they're in our classes. We need to create a good, positive learning for them to be more comfort, relaxed, and be able to learn. What are those ways that you can use? Here are some that you ritualize and pattern positive teachers' behavior, influence performance. Teacher should be a positive role model at all times. You expose your learners to new learning materials, and so forth. So you should not just have the same poster and now and then every year. Learners will get boring of those teaching aids. At least try to renew your class teaching materials. Try to have different learning approach. If maybe you used a song in the other part of speech, then next time try a game. Always have something new. Try something new for learners also to be encouraged to participate and follow. Okay, there is a simulation and a role play, which are key tools for simulating learners to speak. You must know the difference between the two. What is a simulation and what is a role play? This one it was in your assignment, and most of you have scored better marks. Please just go back to your assignment and see how you explain it and understand it. You can also do some other research and try to have full understanding, concrete understanding about these two, the simulation and role play. Ways of creating learners' speaking confidence. Speaking and reading, those two skills goes together. A child needs to be comfortable in the class for him or her to be able to speak, especially speaking. This one is a skill on its own, which is assessed in schools on its own. And learners might lose marks, but not necessarily that they don't know what is happening or what they should say. It's only that they are shy or they are not comfortable of saying what or speaking in the class. Learners are from different backgrounds, or they are not comfortable of expressing themselves in the language that is being used in the class, which is English. Now, how should we do away with this? I want you to give now the ways of creating learners' confidence in speaking. Okay, at some point, saying use English only in the class. The moment you start now just using English in English class, there is no mother tongue. Okay, so learners will try at least to say words in English, because it's just a language being used in the class. Learners should only respond in English in English in the class, English classroom. Learners should speak a lot. We were talking about the group work. Group work could be one of the best methods to create confidence in learner speaking. If learners are in group, you know, even those shy ones, you will see them try to say something to others instead of the whole class. You know, try to create small groups where learners will be a little bit comfortable to speak to the small group rather than the whole class. So find more points on how or to create good confidence of speaking in your learners in your class. Okay, these are the terms. These terms, in most cases, I ask them at the beginning of the paper. These are knowledge based. These are level 1. Let me say all questions where I ask you to define the terms. These terms are just part of our module. These are part of our courses. I want you to understand what is phonology, morphology, syntax, and semantic. The study guide have a definition of this one. That's why I did not indicate, but you can also use some material that I did not put up the definition here because I want you to go and do the research. The moment you start researching, you are studying. If you search for something and then you find out the meaning of it, for sure you will not forget about it. Go and find out what are the meaning of these words. There are some meanings in our study guide, but try to find some also from other resources so that you can reach yourself. But know you understand the meaning of all these terms that we have here: phonology, morphology, syntax, and semantics. Okay. We go to communicative language approach. This one is an approach of teaching language. And what is it then? Communicative language teaching. This is where you find the teacher uses of really life situation that necessitate communication. In a communicative language teaching, it's almost like learner-centered approach. You find the teacher is making the really life situations. For example, let me say maybe we have some issues like how can I say it? The learners are using the situation that we find in a really life. For example, maybe in a drama, you find it's about, or a role play, it's about a nurse and a patient. You see they are doing what nurses are doing and the patient's behavior is. So these are the things that are happening in the real life. Not like just listening to what happens to stories, but learners are acting in real life. Communicative approach leaves students in suspicion as to the outcomes of class exercise, which will vary according to their reaction and responses. Real life situations change from day to day, and students' motivate to learn comes from their desire to communicate in meaningful ways about meaningful topics. So in communicative language, as I said, this one communicative language is not really far from a learner-centered approach. You find learners in group, they communicate, they find a solution to different issues, problems, and all those type of things. That is, they communicate, it's more on interaction. So that's why I'm saying it's not different from learner-centered approach. But know that when you are defining this one, you are talking about communicative language. Don't find yourself in a way where you are just talking about learner-centered approach. If it's communicative language, talk about communicative language and leave learner-centered approach alone, because it's not what is being asked in there. So we come now to the common feature of standard language. We have standard language. What are those common features of standard language? This one is a knowledge question or a knowledge-based content. You must just read these things and understand what is a features of standard language. I have just put up all the points that fall under the standard languages. So there are also a few in our study guide, but these slides you can just read it and understand everything which is here. We goes to the importance of English. As we know it, this one comes in both modules. Why do we need to be good in English in our country? This one, it's obvious. And then we come to the lesson planning format, which consists of different structures. I know in school we use different lesson plans format, but there are key words or the key terms that appear in both of them. For sure, understand what comes under, what goes into each and every section of the lesson plan. If I ask you the goals, what are the goals in the lesson plan and what is expected to be under the section of goals, what is supposed to be there, you must know. Accommodation, closure, what is happening under closure, you must know that. So try to use your book, which is written by Thompson. Thompson has the format of a lesson plan, and each and every term in a lesson plan is really explained in there, and what activities could be done under each and every section is really stipulated in there. Get that book, which is written by Thompson. It's about teaching methods, and understand that the terms that comes into a lesson plan format. We come to the characteristics or the features of a good listener. If people are saying you're a good listener, what those characteristics that goes into you? What characteristic that we need to see? Here are some points that I have just indicated for you as an examples, but there are more in our guide. Go and read them. Always play. One of them, the example is always pay full attention to a speaker. That you focus your mind on what is being said, no interruption, and all those type of things. Those are the characteristics of good listeners. And there are 3 basics framework for listening skill. The basic framework for listening skill, what are they? We have pre-listening, while listening, and post-listening. You must know this framework and the activities that are happening under each and every framework. Pre-listening skill, what are those activities that could be done? Possible activities that could be done under this framework. While listening, what are those activities that can be done under this, and so forth. These are the things that we do on our daily basis in our classes. What are those activities? Before you put your learners into listening, what are those activities that you do first? And while your learners are listening, what are those activities that goes into it? And after listening, post, which is after listening, what do your learners do? Okay, we move on. We have authentic materials. These authentic materials, we are now familiar with the word, because it comes now a long way. These are really objects, really materials. And the question might come, why do we need to use these really objects as teaching aids in our classes? What are the benefits to the learners? The benefit is always to the learners. What are those benefits? Here are some few of them, but try to find out more on the benefit of authentic materials that we can use in our classes. What are learners benefiting from there? Please try to understand this one. It's really very important. We have two structures in our guide. In our guide, we have 2 structures. One, it's the structure of the presentation of a lesson presentation, and the other structure of a public speech. the two terms, lesson presentation and public speech. You must know the difference between the two, how the public speech structure differ from the one of the lesson. Because in most cases you find a person, instead of using the structure of a presentation of a lesson in a class, you find a person is using the one for the public speech. Please find out the difference between the presentation of a lesson and the public presentation. This one is in your study guide. Go in your study. I do away with the pages, because if I give you pages, I have picked up this one student that you only go straight to those pages and you do not read other parts of your study guide, and they are all very important in your teaching careers. So try to read your guide and see where you can find it. Of course, they are in there. You can find these two structures of presentation and know the difference between the two. Okay. This is our presentation. I know I hope you have learned a lot. It helped you. What I want to bring to your attention here is just that I normally ask you to contact me after 2, but because of some few changes, I'm requesting you, if you want to communicate with me, do it after 5. And you do this one either through email or text. You text me. For sure, with time I will reply. Other than that, let me wish you a good luck and enjoy.